Today we begin with a truth many adults overlook, a truth that feels uncomfortable because it challenges relief, that sense of safety you feel when a fever fades, when a rash disappears, when life seems ready to move on again. Measles is often remembered as a childhood illness, a storm that passes, but for adults it can be a long echo, a quiet aftermath that tests awareness, patience and responsibility. The most dangerous moments are not always when the body is burning with heat, but when silence returns and vigilance relaxes. This is where wisdom matters, because healing is not always the end of a disease, and recovery does not always mean protection. In public health, the greatest victories are often invisible, achieved through attention after the applause fades. Adults who believe the danger has passed may unknowingly walk into weeks of vulnerability, where the immune system is still negotiating, still learning, still exposed. This moment demands reflection, not fear, and action, not panic, because knowledge transforms uncertainty into strength. When we listen to global health leaders like Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, we are reminded that health is a journey, not an event, and that the responsibility to protect life does not end when symptoms stop. Measles can quietly weaken defenses, leaving the body open to infections that arrive later, disguised as ordinary fatigue, strange headaches, or subtle changes in breathing and focus. Adults, driven by duty, work and family, often dismiss these signs, telling themselves they are simply tired, simply busy, simply moving forward. Yet the body remembers what the mind tries to forget. Weeks after recovery, inflammation can stir, organs can strain, and the immune system can falter, creating a quiet suspense between what seems normal and what may soon emerge. This suspense is not meant to frighten, but to awaken. Awareness is the bridge between survival and resilience, and adults must learn to cross it deliberately. History has taught us that neglect after illness carries a cost, and measles has repeatedly shown that its consequences can arrive late, unannounced, and misunderstood. In moments of recovery, society often urges speed, productivity, and return, but wisdom urges observation, follow-up, and care. This is not weakness, it is foresight. To monitor symptoms is to respect the complexity of the human body, and to seek follow-up care is to honor the value of life itself. Adults must understand that health systems are strongest when individuals remain engaged beyond the crisis, because delayed complications do not announce themselves loudly. They whisper through subtle warning signs, asking whether someone is listening. The question is not whether recovery has occurred, but whether vigilance has remained. In this space between illness and wellness, responsibility lies, and it belongs to each adult who believes their health matters. By staying alert, by respecting medical advice, and by understanding that measles is not always finished when it seems so, we choose prevention over regret. This first step is not dramatic, but it is powerful, because awareness today prevents suffering tomorrow. The future of adult health is shaped not only by treatment, but by what we do after the pain ends, when no one is watching, and when discipline replaces urgency. This is the quiet beginning of protection, where informed adults refuse to ignore their bodies and choose long-term health over short-term relief. What happens next depends not on fear, but on attention, not on chance, but on choice. And this choice begins the moment recovery seems complete. In that moment, a question remains, quietly waiting, asking whether adults will listen closely enough to hear the body's unfinished story, or whether silence will be mistaken for safety. This uncertainty is the space where awareness must grow, because health is preserved not by assumption, but by mindful follow-through, guided by science, humility, and care. As adults, the responsibility to protect ourselves does not end with survival. It begins with understanding, and that understanding starts now, before delayed consequences demand attention through pain. This awareness is the foundation of resilience, and resilience is built by those who remain watchful, even when relief feels deserved. The journey forward is quiet, deliberate, and necessary, reminding every adult that recovery is not an ending, but a responsibility carried forward with intention, patience, and respect for life's complexity, long after the symptoms fade. This is where true prevention begins, not in fear, but in awareness, not in haste, but in care, and not in forgetting, but in remembering that health asks for attention even when it seems restored. That is the message every adult must carry forward, quietly, responsibly, and with purpose, because the future depends on what we do after we believe the danger has passed. This awareness honors life, strengthens communities, and reflects the deeper truth that recovery is not the end of care, but its continuation, lived through mindful choices and informed action every single day. In that spirit, adults step forward wiser, more attentive, and better prepared to protect what truly matters, even when the world believes the crisis is over. Because true health leadership begins with personal responsibility, sustained beyond recovery, and guided by awareness that does not fade with symptoms, but grows stronger with understanding, commitment, and care for the long journey ahead of life itself, protected by vigilance, respect, and informed choices made long after illness seems gone and forgotten by many others. As the weeks move forward and normal life resumes, a subtle tension settles beneath the surface, because this is the period when delayed complications choose to reveal themselves, not dramatically, but gradually, almost patiently. The body, having fought measles, may appear calm, yet inside it is still recalibrating, still repairing systems that were strained, still vulnerable in ways that are easy to underestimate. Adults often trust visible recovery more than invisible processes, but health does not operate on appearances alone. The immune system, temporarily weakened by measles, can forget protections it once held, leaving the door open to infections that feel unrelated, confusing, and unexpected. A lingering cough, recurring fevers, persistent fatigue, blurred focus, or unexplained weakness may quietly signal that the story is not finished. This is where suspense lives, in the uncertainty between what feels minor and what could become serious if ignored. Many adults push forward, driven by responsibility and routine, believing endurance is strength, yet true strength lies in attention. History reminds us that measles can leave behind inflammation of the lungs, the brain, or other vital systems, complications that do not always rush to announce themselves. Instead, they wait, allowing time to blur the connection between cause and effect. This delay creates risk, because when symptoms appear weeks later, people may not link them to the illness they believe they already conquered. This is the quiet danger Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus has repeatedly emphasized through public health guidance. The danger of forgetting that recovery is a phase, not a finish line. The suspense deepens when we consider that some complications progress silently, causing damage before discomfort demands attention. Adults may feel functional while underlying processes unfold, slowly reshaping health outcomes. This is not meant to alarm, but to clarify why follow-up care is not optional, but essential. Medical evaluation after recovery is not an admission of fear, it is an act of wisdom. In this middle space, where symptoms are subtle and life is loud, choices matter more than urgency. Ignoring signs because they are inconvenient does not make them disappear. It only delays response. The body communicates quietly before it cries out, and those whispers are the most important signals to hear. This is where suspense reaches its peak, because the future hinges on whether awareness is maintained or abandoned. Adults who remain alert protect not only themselves, but also their families, workplaces, and communities. Delayed complications can affect cognitive clarity, respiratory strength, and overall resilience, influencing daily life in ways that accumulate over time. Without follow-up, these impacts can compound, turning manageable issues into long-term challenges. The uncertainty of this period is not a threat, but a call to responsibility. It asks adults to slow down long enough to listen, to question assumptions, and to seek professional guidance, even when they feel mostly fine. In global health, prevention is often quiet, unseen, and undervalued. Yet it saves lives precisely because it acts before crisis returns. Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus has spoken about vigilance as a form of respect for human life, reminding us that health leadership begins with personal accountability informed by science. This accountability is tested after recovery, when motivation fades and routines resume. Suspense thrives when attention drops, when follow-up is postponed, and when subtle symptoms are dismissed as stress or age. But this suspense can be resolved through action, through checkups, through honest conversations with healthcare providers, and through refusing to minimize changes that persist or worsen. Adults must remember that measles can reset immune memory, increasing susceptibility to other infections long after the rash is gone. This reality reframes recovery as a fragile phase requiring care, not a victory lap inviting neglect. The quiet danger is not the disease itself, but the belief that it no longer matters. As days pass, each choice either strengthens protection or invites risk. The suspense is not dramatic, but it is decisive, because delayed complications do not ask permission before advancing. They rely on inattention to gain ground. Awareness interrupts this process, restoring control to those willing to observe and respond. Adults who understand this do not panic. They prepare. They recognize that health is preserved through consistency, not complacency. In this middle stretch, between illness and long-term wellness, the future is shaped by small, deliberate actions taken when no one else is watching. Monitoring symptoms, attending follow-up appointments, and respecting medical advice become acts of leadership over one's own life. This period challenges adults to redefine strength, not as endurance without rest, but as responsibility without denial. The suspense dissolves when knowledge replaces assumption, when vigilance replaces forgetfulness, and when care continues beyond visible recovery. This is the turning point where outcomes diverge, where one path leads toward sustained health and the other toward preventable struggle. The difference lies not in chance, but in choice, made quietly, thoughtfully, and consistently during these weeks when recovery feels complete, but the body is still writing the next chapter of its story. The final lesson emerges not in fear, but in clarity, because understanding delayed complications is ultimately about protecting the future with intention and care. Adults who recognize that measles recovery is a continuation rather than a conclusion gain the power to act early, thoughtfully, and effectively. Long-term health is not preserved by reacting to crises alone, but by respecting the quiet phases where prevention does its most meaningful work. Weeks after recovery, when routines feel normal again, the body still asks for partnership, for observation, for patience. This is where wisdom settles in, reminding us that health is a relationship we maintain, not a condition we briefly achieve. When follow-up care is embraced, potential complications are identified sooner, treatment becomes simpler, and outcomes improve dramatically. Adults who take this approach are not overly cautious, they are informed. They understand that caring for health is not a burden, but an investment that returns stability, energy, and peace of mind. The guidance shared by voices such as Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus reinforces this truth, highlighting that public health success depends on individuals remaining engaged beyond the obvious stages of illness. His perspective reflects a broader philosophy, that protecting health is an ongoing responsibility shaped by awareness, education, and timely action. As adults, acknowledging this responsibility reshapes how we approach recovery, shifting from relief to readiness. The body's signals, whether subtle or persistent, deserve respect, because they provide an opportunity to intervene before complications harden into long-term limitations. By choosing not to ignore these signs, adults protect their independence, their productivity, and their quality of life. This choice also strengthens communities, because healthier individuals reduce strain on families, workplaces, and healthcare systems. The ripple effect of vigilance extends far beyond the individual, reinforcing resilience at every level. In a world where attention is often fragmented, choosing to focus on health after recovery is an act of discipline and foresight. It requires resisting the urge to rush forward without reflection, and instead committing to follow through with care. This commitment transforms recovery into resilience, uncertainty into preparedness, and concern into confidence. Adults who embrace this mindset become stewards of their own well-being, guided by knowledge rather than assumption. They understand that delayed complications are not inevitable, but preventable through monitoring, medical guidance, and respect for the body's healing timeline. This understanding empowers individuals to act early, seek help without hesitation, and prioritize long-term outcomes over short-term convenience. The message is not one of alarm, but of empowerment, because informed adults are better equipped to navigate health challenges with calm and control. Measles, like many illnesses, leaves lessons behind for those willing to learn, lessons about patience, humility, and the importance of continued care. By honoring these lessons, adults turn experience into wisdom, reducing risk and strengthening resilience. The journey does not end with recovery. It evolves into stewardship, where health is maintained through conscious choices and informed action. This perspective reframes follow-up care as a sign of strength, not vulnerability, and vigilance as a form of self-respect. When adults remain alert after recovery, they affirm that their lives, responsibilities, and futures matter. This affirmation is powerful because it aligns personal health with broader public well-being. Each follow-up appointment, each symptom monitored, and each informed decision contributes to a culture of prevention that saves lives quietly and effectively. In this way, individual awareness becomes collective protection, reinforcing the foundation of healthier societies. The story of recovery then becomes a story of leadership, where adults lead by example through responsibility and foresight. As life moves forward, this leadership ensures that lessons learned are not forgotten, but integrated into daily practice. The result is not fear, but confidence, built on understanding and action. This confidence allows adults to move forward with clarity, knowing they have done what is necessary to protect their health and those around them. The future, shaped by these choices, becomes more stable, more resilient, and more secure. This is the enduring message, that health is safeguarded not only during illness, but in the attentive weeks that follow, when care continues quietly and purposefully. If you are benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early.